Goner Records Podcast. Goner Records Podcast. The Goner Records Podcast. The Goner Records Podcast. Welcome to this edition of the Goner Records Podcast. Goner Records is a record store, record label in Memphis, Tennessee. We put on Goner Fest every year, and we try to point people towards fun, interesting, obscure, underappreciated, good music in all kinds of forms. This podcast comes out sporadically whenever we have time to get it together and get it out to you. Today we're talking to Scott Soriano. Scott is a longtime member of kind of underground garage punk rock community out of Sacramento, California. In the 90s, he had his Moo La La Records label. Sang and played guitar in Los Huevos, who were excellent, trashy punk, garage punk kind of band, featuring Chris Woodhouse, who was kind of known for the A-Frames, as an A-Frames producer, and affiliated with the FM Knives, Mayors, and a bunch of other bands who were killing it at the end of the 90s. Anyway, Scott Soriano, after Moo La La, he kind of transitioned into running SS Records, which has a long history of putting out excellent punk rock, and also he has some sub-labels, which has reissued some more international music. The master musicians of Jujuka and some Brazilian records as well on these sub-labels. But what we're talking about today is his latest endeavor, Record Time. Record Time is a magazine, print magazine, not online, that is trying to draw attention to overlooked, kind of common records that deserve a second chance, might be overlooked because they're not T-Rex. They're the band that sounded kind of like T-Rex, but everybody overlooked them. So the general vibe, I think, kind of reminds me of maybe the Rocktober guys doing some deep dives into underappreciated artists that were taken for granted at the time. And the magazine just showed up at the Goner store. Haven't really had a chance to dive into it yet. Looking forward to that. But let Scott tell you a little bit about what he's trying to do with the magazine, how it's coming together. And here is my talk with Record Time's editor, publisher, Scott Soriano. All right, I'm here with Scott Soriano out in Sacramento, California.
San Francisco.
San Francisco! You're blowing my mind. Anything out west is all the same to us. You know, we don't know the difference. Yeah. And Scott is undertaking the admirable task of a new music-based magazine covering the latest and greatest indie rock of today. Now, why don't you tell us a little bit about Record Time, your new endeavor?
Well, Record Time's a print-only magazine, and it's Record Time's a print-only magazine that focuses on records, specifically obscure, forgotten, unusual, and neglected records. The kind of records that, if you're a record freak, that you see time and time again in record stores, used record stores, bargain bins, and for $5 or $10, and you go, why isn't anybody buying this? And the other thought is, why are they paying $30 for a reissue that they've heard 1,000 times before? This is kind of like a one person's battle against that. That's what it is.
Yeah, When I was reading about your magazine and thinking about your magazine, it tapped into a lot of things as a record store owner and record label owner and person that's been in a band. Just a lot of things going on. Um, the aspect of good records that are cheap and that are kind of overlooked in today's kind of market or climate or whatever is something that I think about a lot because it's really hard to sell for whatever reason. It's hard to sell cheap, common, good records, and people really aren't looking for that. And I think it has to do with I don't know how people collect things now and how people think about music. Um, and I think putting a spotlight on the fact that these records are out there and they're fun is a really worthwhile endeavor.
Well, and algorithms, I mean, nowadays, especially, and everybody. It's not an age thing, but so many people are turned on to music from algorithms. So they get, and who knows, who's writing the algorithms. So they get, some people get turned on to great stuff. I mean, it's like how many people. I mean, when we were younger, we didn't, when we were teenagers, I mean, at least I didn't know who Can was or Noy was or Faust or, and it was difficult to find like Velvet Underground records, even, or Stooges records. And now, a 14-year-old, 15-year-old, 18-year-old has gotten turned on to that stuff through an algorithm. Um, and that's great. But if you don't make the algorithm, or if the algorithm doesn't suggest you, then that stuff just becomes obscure, and it's funny because some of this stuff was like huge in the day it was released. Like the one of my favorite kind of power popish records is Walter Egan's "Too Shy,"
Yeah,
which is like produced by Mick Fleetwood. Any Fleetwood Mac fan of that era who likes Tusk, which is like the cult record now, would like would probably like that Walter Egan record. But what algorithm suggests it? And if they do, they suggest what is it, Magnet and Steel,
right,
the hit song. But even then, um, but it's a very good to great record for what it is. It's definitely not one that if you spent $3 on, you'd say, "Boy, I wasted my money on that."
right,
Other record that written about in this the issue first issue of Record Time is the Montrose album. I mean, the Montrose album, the first Montrose album, because the rest of them suck. The first Montrose album is great. I mean, it's one of the best rock and roll records ever made. It's definitely one of the top five hard rock records ever made of the era. It Van Halen's template was just taken from that, and they took Sammy Hagar from them too.
right,
Eventually, Metallica. You can just go on. Slayer. I mean, all those people listen to that. Mudhoney, Nirvana. It's such a pure hard rock and roll album without the there's cock rocking, of course, but there's not the excessive guitar solos and stuff like that. They're pretty compact, almost like a precursor to new wave of British heavy metal. Compact rock and roll songs that are really strong and catchy. That you find that for $5 you can find it for $5. In record stores. I
right,
mean, it and why?
right,
Why? I mean, there are like these quote unquote collectible hard rock records that um, that people will pay $30 for, listen to once, and file away. You buy that Montrose album, you're going to listen to it over and over and over and over and again. And 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 I know why there's so many of them out there, because it sold a hell of a lot of records,
Right.
and that's why it's $5. But why does it sit in bins for years? I mean, you guys
Right.
might have one in your record
Oh,
store, unless
we've got a
yeah,
bunch.
yeah, unless you go, hey, if you like this, you might like this,
Right.
and shove it on to people, which is the primary one of the primary ways that us old people, got turned on to music.
Right.
It wasn't an algorithm. It wasn't YouTube videos or that. The influencer was the guy behind the record store counter,
Right.
or a fanzine or something like that. So record time is kind of like, um, hopefully, going to serve that role. I Though I think a lot of the audience is going to be people like you and me who don't need to be sold on this stuff, but want to be turned on to good music, or hear the stories behind them and stuff like that.
For sure. It's kind of everything backwards. You used to read these magazines to find out about the obscure, rarest stuff. You used to read these magazines to find out about krautrock and Can and everything, because you'd never see the records. There's no way to hear this
Right.
stuff, and all that has been kind of brought up to the surface so much that it's kind of crowded out everything else in a way. And I think this everybody is into curating now, to the point where all you listen to is curated stuff and you have no context for anything. So,
Right.
it's like making your own greatest hits cassette that you're listening to. It's just never really satisfying, as if someone else makes you a tape that they know what you want,
Right.
coming from their experience. And it's this weird thing where people don't want to listen to anything but the top of the top, and their record collection is 40 records, and it's what everybody else has, and that's what they think they need.
Yeah, and if the curator, whether that be a record store buyer or a music journalist, or whatever, if the curator, um, if all the curators went to the same school and learned the same stuff, they all recommend the same thing.
Right.
So you can go into a record store in San Francisco, in Memphis, in Bloomington, Indiana, in Providence, Rhode Island, in Clearwater, Florida. They all look the same, or at least they all have the same music available. It's like Starbucks, but with different names. And that I mean, and those unique stores, unfortunately, they're also the ones that struggle. That that they have, they kind of get ignored, um, unless they carry, you know, uh, the top 40 of whatever it is. And I understand that. I mean, I've done small business before. You sell it, and maybe Goner doesn't do this, but a lot of stores do. You sell Tyler Swift records to pay the rent.
Yep.
Yeah, and with that enables you to carry some obscure punk band, like the stuff that I used to put out, um, and or Nigerian flute music, or whatever's not
Right.
going to, like, immediately jump off the shelves, and your passion, stuff. And it's funny, that one of the hypes of the internet is that the internet, just made all this stuff available and all this whatever. And, the internet kind of centralizes things. And it makes it, there's so much noise out there. It makes it harder to get through, unless, and there are gatekeepers. And so, it's not, it it just the more obscure, the less promoted thing doesn't get picked up, um, and there becomes less and less room for uh, empathetic uh, record store mail order folks to, I guess, now indulge in that kind of thing. Back in the 1960s, 70s, every record label, uh, almost every major record label had a international music department or a jazz department that didn't make any money.
Right.
They signed people like Sonny Sherrick, or they put out like the stuff you find on Okura Records, yeah, sailor music from Saudi Arabia,
Right.
things like that, or the sounds of North American Bullfrog,
Yes.
with great record,
Yes.
but you know those aren't commercial endeavors, and those were not the Bullfrog ones, but the Bullfrog one was subsidized by the state. I mean,
Folkways. Yeah.
Smithsonian Folkways, yeah, was subsidized by the state. When you get things like Albert Ayler or Raw, really popular, or Alice Coltrane, didn't sell shit back then.
Right.
Subsidized by the record companies, subsidized by uh, uh, Billy Joel,
Right.
subsidized by and nowadays we don't have a Taylor Swift. Those sales don't subsidize. The record labels don't do that anymore.
Right.
That all comes out independent now, because of the internet. You can get access to that stuff digitally, and that's fine and dandy. I'm not. Realize that part of my record addiction is a fetish, but there's also something. I mean, there's more to it than that. I mean, the thing that addicts me, or that makes me kind of addicted to records, not so much records, it's the hunt.
Yeah.
It, and that you do the same thing with when you get involved in an indie label that doesn't make much money or any money. It's the hunt. It's the discovery of new bands. It's the discovery of new records. It's just going out and flipping through records and then maybe having that aha moment.
Right.
Um, and then coming back with a stack of records, a stack of cheap records, and going through them, going, "Ah, that sucks, that sucks, that sucks, that's okay, that sucks, that sucks. Oh, fucking, what the hell is this?" That just my mind just got blown,
Right.
and it's like, I mean, you grew up in Hawaii, and it's like if you're flipping through a record bin and you pulled out Flying Fucking A Heads record,
Right. Never.
or yeah, but say you did,
Right.
right?
Right. Well, back in
You
the
know,
day, you would find those records because the hippies dumped all their records in the 80s. And
right?
so, yeah, there's amazing freaked out records in Hawaii for no real
Yeah, and
reason.
yeah, and I found great records in Hawaii, Latin records,
Yeah.
because Latin music was island music,
Right.
and island people buy other island music,
Right.
whether it's reggae or salsa or calypso.
Yeah.
I mean, I cleaned up calypso records,
Nice.
clean up on Enka records in
Yeah.
Hawaii, and you know, and which is part of the hunt. You're going around. You know, in Maui, there's a shitty fucking record store in the main town, and it's really bad. I mean, it's just a bad record store, but the basement is stuffed with stuff, and you can go through there and you can find some gems here and there.
Right.
Last time I was in Kauai, went to a thrift store, found a what's his name, Arthur Brown record. Found a record by this obscure hard rock band called Bucks. Uh, it, it was just a really nice stack of records. A Blue Cheer record, which I already had, but I bought anyway because it was only $5.
Right.
And it's like, that's part of the hunt. And part of the hunt is you're in a place where you wouldn't normally find records. And there's no record store on Kauai, and you find some great records, and it's just like that experience itself. You don't even have to listen to the records. You just kind of, your mind just sort of gets this mini blown, and that's like that's hopefully. I mean, what I'm trying to encourage, one of the things I'm trying to encourage with the with record time is the hunt, and not just the hunt. It's the taking risks, because you take risks and there's rewards. I
Right.
mean, how many times does everybody, people sample the music before they listen to it? They get out there, whip out their phones, look, see what the
See if
value
it's
is,
worth buying. Right. Yeah.
see if it's worth buying, and then listen to a clip on YouTube.
Right.
And it's like, um, Lester Bangs. I mean, I cite this all the time. Lester Bangs has this one passage in Psychotic Reactions, the piece Psychotic Reactions, which is in the book, where he's talking about going to the record store and picking up a copy of Carburetor Dung. It's a fictional
Right.
record, and he's walking home, anticipating ripping the cellophane off, and it's just not exactly a nervous wreck, but it's just this just what does this sound like? What does this sound like? I've been waiting for this record. I have no idea. And going, getting home, and then ripping it out of the shrink wrap, putting it on the turntable, dropping the needle, and just waiting for that moment of whether it's going to be a dud or just another record, or just going to blow your mind.
Right. Yeah, I think, yeah.
And
The
and
Go ahead.
and that experience, forget about the music. That experience itself is lost to so many people. For us growing up, we grew up in an era where there weren't cell phones and instant access to all this stuff. So for me, it's just a habit that I mean, that's just the way I do things. And I know that experience because I had that experience before all this digital technology. Um, and I really hope that at least with some people, read Record Time and go, you know what? I'm just going to leave my phone in my back pocket,
Right.
and I'm just going to buy a stack of 10 records for $4 each, and it's a night out.
Right. Right.
It's $40. How much people spend $40 in a bar
Right.
one night?
Right. Yeah, yeah. I think it's
Yeah,
when you're talking about the major labels putting out international music and subsidizing it by the more popular thing, they had a vision of what a proper record label was. And it was a
yeah,
breadth of experience. It wasn't just their biggest sellers. Their biggest sellers could be Otis Redding, and it could be amazing artists, worthwhile artists. But still, you don't just need Otis Redding. You need all the other stuff that they decided was valuable to listen to too. And people, you would walk into a house and people would have 40,000 books, and you go, wow, this person has a wide variety of knowledge, and a record
right.
collection that's 5,000 records. And not all those records are great. You can learn stuff from anything. If you only
Sure.
listen, if you only listen to the top of the top, it's really boring. And you go home, you buy a record, you don't know what it is, it's cheap, and then you try to figure it out, and then you go, oh, I actually like this, or I hate this record, and then by the time you listen to it 5 times because it's your only record, that 18-minute psychedelic jam on the B-side is the best thing you've ever heard, you know.
Right, right, yeah. And how many times did that, as a teenager, did that happen to you? You buy a shitty record, or what you thought was a shitty record. I mean, there's some records that aren't immediate. I mean, that's a
Yeah,
fact. One listen and one sample isn't going to do it. They need to sink in. Either they're difficult, or you just don't get it, or you don't have enough music
yeah,
knowledge, or it took Wire's Pink Flag was an immediate hit with me. It took me a couple years for Chairs Missing to sink in, because it's not an immediate
yeah.
record. It might be now because people have heard all kinds of things that have been influenced by it, but at that point it wasn't an immediate record. I mean, to me, it's the better of the two records. Um, but I mean, it's like A or A plus versus A plus plus plus. I mean, so it's like we're splitting hairs there, but it's but I would, if I would nowadays, same thing. I wouldn't give it a second
Right,
chance. And then there's the songs, the records that you just, because it's the only record you have and it's not that good, or it's good enough or whatever. You listen to it and it's like you learn how songs are structured. You learn how strong songs shouldn't be structured. You learn your taste.
right.
Your own taste, not the taste that you're inheriting from some algorithm or somebody
Right.
else.
Yeah, we bought a collection of punk 45s and LPs from a woman that was buying them as they came out. And it's fascinating to look at them and go through them and see, oh yeah, she ended up over here. Those records, those Damned records, were really great. She went over here and she bought like 5 Fingerprints records or something. While they're coming
But
out, you don't know. You just buy. This is new. I want to buy it, and it's exciting. And some things pay off, and other things don't. And in hindsight, going back to listen to Wire, it makes sense now from one to the third record. But if you listen to the third record when the first record had come out, people would have just they wouldn't have known what
yeah,
to do with it.
well, and then and then you get back then to you get something like, I mean, perhaps not the Dams. It's not a good, but I mean, there's tons of like, like Crime. Um, you know, so many people know Crime now. You see like, just kind of even somewhat straight folks,
Right.
walking down the street with a Crime T-shirt on sometimes, or whatever. Or every once in a while that happens. But people know Crime or the Screamers. Both those bands were terribly
Yeah,
obscure
they
back
didn't
then. I mean, the Screamers
exist. I mean, they
they,
didn't
yeah,
exist.
the Screamers didn't. The Screamers exist in legend,
Right.
and I mean, for the few people who saw them, and the no records that they released, and it was bands like the Fingerprints who were like pushed as the next big thing. Well, or the Knack,
Right.
and the Knack had one hit, and that's it.
Right.
And and Fingerprints is, it's an okay listen, and I'm sure if I go through all their records, I'm going to find a few songs that are like, oh, I'd put on a
Yeah.
mixtape. But eh,
Right. Right.
do I need any Fingerprints records?
Right.
Nah,
Right.
no,
Right. Right.
no,
Yeah.
you know. And so it's like, um, this it. That said, not to be want to sound like a total old man. The quality of pop music coming out today, because of all these influences, there's some really amazing stuff, and some really interesting stuff. I mean, who would have thought that a song that sounded like that Billie Eilish hit, "The Bad
Yeah.
Man," would become a hit.
Right.
I, even though it actually is kind of as sort of different as David Essex "Rock On,"
Right.
you
Right.
know. which was a hit, and it actually has the same kind of
Yeah.
vibe. Um, but and that was possible because of glam rock and because of psychedelia and dub. I'm talking about Rock On and you know Billie Eilish was possible because of people listening to Can and Noi and things like that,
Yeah.
and all the Sly Stone Flower stuff, and you can hear all that stuff in that, and I mean it's funny because we're both about the same age. We grew up in a really conservative time for music. Punk rock, hardcore was the rebellion against a mass just blandness
Right.
of of what we call classic
Right.
rock, and then bad singer songwriter stuff. The ironic thing or the funny thing, and this is what with record time is, the stuff that focusing on is, um, or some of the stuff we're focusing on is the stuff that fell in the cracks between and during that period of
Yeah.
time that was really good. Some became hits and then they just kind of faded away, and then some are just, were just a good record that was supposed to be a commercial success and it just failed for whatever reason.
Yeah.
But it's still a good record.
Yeah. Yeah. So I saw that you're covering Plastic Bertrand's Chaplin pour moi. Is that
Yeah.
the sort of all the permutations of that, different versions, and as it, what is the story of that as it's told in your magazine to highlight it a little bit?
Well, sure. So the origin of the song, um, it comes from a guy. Oh boy, I just forgot his name. Um, um, Give me a second. This is bad radio or podcasting or whatever. Uh, Lou. Uh, I know my wife knows his name.
I don't know his name.
Yeah, I mean, he was called Hollywood Lou, was his name. I mean, was one of the things he went by. And a Belgian guy named Lou de Bredzik, Bredzik. So anyway, Lou was in a band called Two Man Sound, who were popular in Belgium, um, and he also did some things like Lou and the Hollywood Bananas, and he did a bunch of like the Charlie Brown Family. He did a lot of novelty singles. Two Man Sound were kind of like a tropical pop band, from the middle of
Right.
Belgium, and and he went to England, and he decided, or he thought, he experienced punk rock, and he went, "Oh, I'm going to go home, and I'm going to do a song, a punk rock dance song, and have a hit with the punk rock dance song." And so he got with help from one of the people in Two Man Sound, Yves Lecomble. He they wrote the song Pogo Pogo, and then they needed a B-side, so they wrote the music to what became Jet Boy Jet Girl, and that was recorded by a band, a fake punk band called Elton Montello, which were composed of mainly of two. There's four studio guys, but there were two main guys. One who had played with Dave Vanian in an earlier version of the Bastard, which was a precursor to the
Hmm.
Damned. they both of those guys released like uh, great two singles, great kind of like proto punk glam singles. Um, and so it's a good solid band, and you can hear that with like Elton Montello's Jet Boy
Yeah.
Jet Girl. And so they record that. Pogo Pogo was it was the A side. They released it with at the A side, Jet Boy Jet Girl, which is about a teenage prostitute and his male lover. Um, that was the B side. Um, and uh, Lou and Yais figured, you know what, we need to do a French language version of this, and so they used the track, um, the music track for both of them, and and Lou did the vocals for and they and Yives wrote new words to Jet Boy
Yeah.
Jet Girl, and that was Saplon Pomois. And then they got uh, Roger Jarre, who was a former member of the Belgian punk band Hubble Bubble or Hubble Bubble, uh, and then working as a fashion model. They drafted him to be Plastic
Good
Bertrand.
front man.
Yeah, basically, yeah. Just he was the front man. He was like the lead
Yeah.
Archie, um, and they did the music. And some DJ flipped the they released it with Pogo Pogo as the A side and Saplon Pomois as the B side, and some DJ flipped it, and it became the biggest international punk single ever to this
Yeah.
day. Uh, Lots of covers, answer songs, rip-offs, just tons. And I go into that in the article. And then there was also a lawsuit over who owned the song and who performed on the song, which I'm not going to talk about. That's in the article. You have to buy the magazine in order to
Yeah.
get it. That and the thing is there's all these spin-offs and all these like all this really kind of some of the I mean there are like Oompa bands who did covers of Saplon Pomois. There's straight up covers. There's Schlanger
Yeah.
covers, which is a German pop
Right.
music, former German pop music. There's faded celebrities who decided to do them. And then there were like people like bands like Telex who covered it on their first album just because, and it's actually one of the better
Nice.
covers, and so it's like there's just this whole universe of like Saplon Pomois and just an interesting story, and you can read about it on the internet, but uh, there are some pieces. Uh, a writer named Laurent Bigot, who writes for Ugly Things and did a couple things in Record Time. He wrote an article on Elton Montello for Ugly Things, and that has a piece of it. And then there's a lot of erroneous pieces on Plastic Bertrand. Um, yeah, but there's some good nuggets out there. There's all kinds of stuff, and reporting on the lawsuit. I brought it all together and found all the true
Yeah.
stuff.
Sounds great. Yeah.
And yeah, and it's long, but hopefully it's really
Yeah.
readable, and it's obsessive. Um, kind of the way that like Ugly Things is, or the old Wax
Yeah.
Poetics, or
Kicks.
Rocktober, you
Yeah.
know, Kicks, yeah, which are all kind of like inspirations for this, just kind of like It doesn't matter if the music makes money. It's just it's the music.
Right.
It's the hunt. It's
Right.
that.
That sounds amazing. That song is kind of an example of a common song. If you see that 45, anybody's going to like that song. You're like,
Yeah,
but it's a $3 record. So
yeah, and it's an
yeah,
earworm, and especially if you go to
yeah,
Europe. I mean, you go to Europe and you go to record stores, you find that single over and over and over and
right,
over again, and it's not going to cost you more than 1 or 2
right,
euros for the single, and it's just a yeah. I mean, it's a great single, and then when you discover Jet Boy Jet Girl either through the Damned who covered it or Elton Monticello, then you've got another great
right.
song. And not only a great song but a great offensive song too.
Always good.
And yeah, and especially the 12 inch. I mean, I play the 12 inch in DJing in at a bar, filling in for somebody else, and and then just the woo 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 he gave me head over and over and over
Right,
again. Just really kind of makes people a bit unsettled.
right. Awesome,
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah, so that's I was yeah thinking about the making a magazine and making I wasn't sure if you were going to have it anything online, but I think your focus is making a physical object for people to
Yeah.
have sort of. Um, but yeah, it's what is your how are you getting the word out? And are you going to distribute through record stores, distributors, yourself? What's your plan?
Yeah, ironically, it because it has no web presence other than a Facebook group and a primitive website, um, which I think is yet to go live. It, it uh, the I'm promoting it online because I mean that's where you promote
Right,
things, right,
right.
nowadays, right? Um, and I'm trying to get it into the when it's print comes out, I'll send out some promo copies to like folks that I think can push it. But yeah, it's going to be I think with this type of music, with the type of music that you and I have been obsessed with for most of our lives and have put out and have carried in either record stores or mail orders. The primary way people know about it is word of mouth, and that's still I think that's still the strongest and most trusted way to
I
get the
agree.
word out. I mean, people will buy a record because one of their friends says, "Hey, you got to buy this," rather than read a review.
Hmm.
um, and that might be the only way that people with a record that a lot of people nowadays will take a chance
Yeah.
on a record without listening to it is word of mouth. So a lot of this is going to be like word of mouth. A lot of it's going to be like tapping into folks like you who are already in the same mindset and who see some value in it and want to get it out there. It'll show up in record stores like Goner Records, um, or like Hex Induction in Seattle, or you can name Dusty
Right.
Groove, record stores that are really about all kinds of music, or even specialty record stores, which are kind of barely
Right.
existent. There used to be the jazz record store and the soundtrack record
Right.
store, and
Right. Right. Right.
um, the world music record store. Here in the Bay Area, there was once a record store that just carried Indian
Nice.
music. And so I mean, and hopefully, folks of that mindset too are people who are record freaks. They're music freaks. So I I I I'm aiming it towards those folks, towards those kind of record stores and mail orders and things like that. And so hopefully, yeah, I'm doing direct sales to record stores. So contact me if you are interested, and also through
Nice.
Revolver. Uh, and eventually, there might be a magazine distributor that picks it up. Maybe another distributor. I'm trying to find a European distributor. Um, but it a lot of people are really tentative because they wonder if they can sell more than a
Yeah.
couple of copies, and and I think that they can. I think that if that there's enough of us kinds of people out there who do stack records, but whatever, who will basically go, oh, this is my
Right.
magazine.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that sounds great. We are looking forward to it. Yeah, it's the kind of thing that we push. We push, good music that's not maybe that's underappreciated, and we're always looking for someone to turn us on to that kind of thing. And it sounds like your magazine is going to be amazing.
Yeah, and not to crawl up your ass, but I appreciate Goner for not only like I know you're going to carry it. Uh, you guys carried in mail order and the store carried the records that I put out, and push them. You do it with other small labels. Your space in Memphis, and I haven't been there in a long time, but the only place that I remember was Shangri-La Records that had kind of which is which was then being run by an associate of
Yeah.
yours, uh, Jack,
Mm.
and
Yeah, it was my friend
uh,
Sherman, but Jared and
yeah, but I
Jared.
think
Oh,
Jack was.
Jack was probably just there all the time. He lives across the street. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. All right. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, I mean, but there are those kind of there's still those kind of stores
Yeah.
around. Not every city has one, but most have at least one.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it freaks me out when you go into these stores that have 40 records in the store, and there is no room for the $5 records. They if they get just common records, they dump them because they want this store that is these 5 international records, these the Taylor Swift and these other records. And we do sell Taylor Swift. I have nothing against Taylor Swift, but it's just one artist in a whole ocean of music. And
Sure,
yeah,
sure. Yeah, and the record stores like, used
yeah,
kids, kind of, they're a lot of them shut down, or they shut down a long time ago and went CD, and then they couldn't make it,
it's a
and
tough business model.
whatever.
Carrying a little bit of everything. And maybe it doesn't make sense all the time,
With
especially with everything getting
yeah,
more
with
and more expensive. But
yeah, and with low
yeah,
margins as
but
well.
it's
So
more fun.
yeah, what are you gonna
Right.
do?
Well, cool. Scott,
Yeah.
thanks for your time, and good luck with the
All right.
magazine. And we'll get this up on our Goner podcast thing sooner or later. Sooner,
Okay.
hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah. Early March is when it
Perfect.
should
We'll
be
have it
out.
up for that, and wish you all the best.
All
Yeah,
right.
thanks for your
Thank
time.
you.
Thanks for listening to the Goner Records podcast. We're looking to get these out more regularly. Stay tuned. We appreciate you checking this out, and other Goner projects might not necessarily be directly money-making things for the label, shop, store, but we hope you find them interesting, educational, somewhat entertaining. You can support us by shopping at Goner, by buying Goner releases and merchandise, and through our Patreon. Check that out at patreon.com/Goner Records. Thanks again for listening. See you soon.